Mixed race v light skinned. What's the difference?
Mixed race, you're actually two different races.
Yeah.
Whereas light skinned, you're just a lighter shade of either black or whatever colour you are. You can be a lighter shade. So like you can be a black girl, and be really really light, or you can just be genuinely dark skinned. Do you know what I mean?
But surely, if you have two very dark individuals and one slightly lighter than the other, are they not entitled to refer to themselves as being light skinned? Or is it based on the defined notion that light skin means as close to a certain colour and not means that you're as far away from that
Do you
colour?
need to be a particular kind of light to be called light skin? Is that what you're trying to say?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, does it have like, I don't know, like someone who's slightly, would you classify yourself as light skinned?
No.
So if like,
No.
oh you?
I wouldn't.
I'm more
I don't.
light skin than mixed skin.
These terms do not define me. I don't classify myself as light skin or that. I think these are concepts that are made by man to group and separate people. Because before the mixed race thing, it was one drop black, you're black. So then mixed race is like a new kind of term that was constructed. Because they never used to have a thing called mixed race. If you had one drop of black, you was black.
Yeah.
Or the one drop rule, right? Are you all familiar with the one drop rule?
No, I'm not.
You know?
I'm not.
Care to expand, Mr. Ricardo?
No, it's not my
Although
question.
although I know, like I would normally, if I would have associated anybody that's mixed, anyways, with black, like the term, but I would call them.
But
Even the whole
Black.
concept
But I don't know
of
where
like
that came
race
from.
is it came in like the 17th or 18th century.
Yeah.
There was no such thing as race. It was all just one people. But then these are terms because of racism that to group us and separate us. So I don't identify myself for being light skin or mixed race or black. I don't. Because then I am who I am. You know what I'm saying?
Cool, because I'm adding to basically the one drop rule as well. From my knowledge, is that during the colonial periods with slavery and so forth back in the States, there was defined groups whereby there was the Negro, or the less kind term, and the masters essentially. So you had the slaves and the masters. But then came a time when the masters often used to rape the slaves and so forth. But it created a situation whereby you had a mixed race individual. Does it really fall under the slave category, or does it fall under the exempt from slavery? So it created an issue whereby it was also more to it in that a lot of the guys wanted to remove themselves from the so-called unfaithfulness to their partners, because how is it that a slave can have a lighter toned offspring without having a relationship outside of marriage? So essentially the one drop rule also came as a way to kind of protect the masters and that. Look, I didn't do anything with the slave because it's not my but so it was, you get what I'm going from. So added to this as well, it's also it was a thing where was it really a slave? If you're a mixed race, essentially you don't really sit in between. So the one drop rule is just to simplify things, and that's also.
If you have a bit of black, you're black.
Sorry?
So if you have a bit of black, you're black.
Anything involved, because I think it was more the thing, if you had the blood or something of some way, then you fell under that category. So yeah, for me, from my view, I also find this question interesting because from my environment that I grew up in, mixed race and light skin meant the same thing, because I guess there wasn't much of other races in my environment where I could you're French, Spanish wasn't people I came across. So it was more the thing where you either looked like me or you was lighter than me. So if you was lighter than me, chances were you were just mixed race or you was light skin. Those were all that was available. But as you were saying, mixed race for you per se in your environments may be a lot more.
Yeah, and like I find that if you're mixed race, you're mixed with two different races.
Yeah.
You can be like Moroccan, and then you can be like Spanish. So you're not fully Moroccan, you're not fully Spanish. You're mixed of the two in it.
Yeah.
So
that's
what
how
do you
I see
call
it.
like? if it's two different races, but they're from the same shade of skin, so like Moroccan,
Yeah.
they're from a separate race to, what was the other country, like Turkey, someone from Turkey and stuff. Would they be called mixed race?
Yeah, because they're still initially two different cultures, two different races. Morocco is North Africa, and Turkey is somewhere.
Yeah.
But they're two different.
Yeah, that's
two
right.
different races.
Yeah, because that's something that wouldn't come up straight in my mind based on what you said, social construction of things. Because if I see an individual who's half Moroccan and half Turkish, immediately I wouldn't think mixed race, like because of what's being projected.
If you make that assumption, you're mixed race, you're going to be half white and half black.
Exactly.
That's not necessarily the case, I believe.
No, it definitely
isn't. You can be a
isn't.
mix of any other races. It's not just black. It's just not white. But I think because of our area and where we've been brought up, that's the kind of assumption that we always tend to make.
Yeah.
So I just think it can mean different things to different people. But from how I've been brought up and what I've seen growing up, it's just a mix of different races.
Yeah.
Whereas the light-skinned, we usually do the assumption as like the black category. So you've got like a dark-skinned black person and you've got a light-skinned black person. So it's just different like shades of the spectrum, if you want to say. Like we're all still black, not black, but in general we're all black. But it's just your shade is different. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Definitely.
Okay. So you're just like you're sticking with the race and tone basically. That's your
yeah.
For me, it's I was often asked this question. Like I ask people in and around. And I find this really interesting. Whereby I feel that this coming from, let's say, being in the UK, applies to those who are not from, let's just say, English, Scottish, or whatever descent, in a sense, because when we say race as such, technically speaking, we can say that someone who has a Scottish mother and an English father can identify themselves as mixed race, but you don't get that margin. It's always I'm white, essentially, ethnicity. Right. So
an English mother and a Scottish father.
Two different races, right?
It's not really.
It's not race. It's
not
different
race.
cultures. So you can't class yourself as mixed race if you're from different cultures.
Yeah.
That's different countries. Race is about the colour of your skin.
So we said,
arguably.
If we said,
Arguably.
But race is about the colour of your skin. It's different cultures. If you're
Yeah.
from two different cultures, then that's when they can clash. If you've got a Christian father and a Muslim mother, then that's two different type of religions that are clashing together.
yeah. So
So I don't.
what would you call that then? What would the output be?
I mean,
Just different.
it's different cultures
Yeah,
and
different countries.
and different countries and how things are going. I just thought race is about the colour of your skin, and if you're from, you can say Turkish because there are people who are white in Turkey, right? And there may be Muslim, like people in Morocco, for example, but they're still going to be mixed race because that's two different races.
Can I ask a question? I don't want to be controversial, but how come Jewish, they consider themselves as a race and not a religion? Like a lot of them, so I'm confused with the whole concept of race. If
I think
religion
it
is
depends
religion.
on who defines it, because there's a sociological definition of
Yeah.
race and there's a scientific definition of race. And the scientific one is like there's only one race, and that's the human race, and that is scientific. The sociological one, they don't follow the color one is more of like what society say. You think, you see a black person and then you see other black person, you categorize them as one race, and then you see Chinese people, you categorize them as one race. But the sociological definition is slightly different. It's like on bone structure. So like that's why just Chinese, Japanese, or Mongolians they call them. So if they have a particular kind of bone structure, they're from that Mongolian race. And then you have the Caucasian race, which everyone knows to talk. And then you have the Negroid race. So that's, the African descendants and stuff. Because we have a particular bone structure. And then what I find really interesting in that is like there will be people from Northern Africa with a different skin tone, but they will be classified as Negroid race because of the bone structure. They'll have broader hips, and the way that they are, the structure of their body will be just as not different as Southern Africans. So they will be classified as the same race as us, but I automatically, we wouldn't look at someone from North Africa and think like, yes, they're from the same race as the Southern African. So that's a really, it depends on, I guess like there's different definitions of like race depending on who defines it. Like, you know, and I have seen people that, you know, if you're half Spanish and half, I don't know, someone from a really, okay, like, you know, you get Spanish people, they're really kind of tanned and stuff and like really a bit dark. And then if they mix with maybe Turkish and stuff, and then the kid comes out really tanned. And I actually have a friend of mine, like she actually looks mixed race as what we would say, like half black and half white. But she's not half black and half white, she's just from different countries with the darkest skin tone, and she came out as kind of like dark, and she says she mixed race, but she really isn't mixed race. It's just because of her skin tone that fits in the skin in the mixed race kind of definition, and she calls herself mixed race. So there are people who are from different from European countries that define themselves as mixed race. So like that's probably where you probably would have heard it. So I think it really depends, really, I suppose,
Okay.
on who defines it.